Okay guys, normally I don't do news, but this time it's gonna be a bit different since Wargaming announced major changes to aircraft carriers. And then I think it's gonna be a very major change to how we play the game and interact. So I want to cover it, give you my thoughts and opinions about what's good and what's bad. But first, let's talk about what's actually being changed. Right now, when you're playing with your aircraft carrier, you just have one mode of playing it. Your planes just behave the same regardless of what you do. Now we're gonna have two modes to differentiate between moving around the map, attacking and spotting. In traveling mode on high altitude, planes cannot spot, but also cannot be damaged back. With AA, they also move at maximum speed thanks to infinite boost. In low altitude modes, we have two of them. We've got the attack mode. Basically, it's the same what we have right now. You're just gonna descend from the high altitude mode first, and then you're gonna start an attack. In the descent, you're gonna take a little bit less damage for the first couple seconds. And the other difference between what we have right now during the attack and what we're gonna have is only the part of the squadron that is attacking is gonna go down. The rest is gonna stay in that high altitude travel mode. So planes are not gonna be replaced. Also, there's gonna be a recon mode. That's gonna be a special thing when you're just gonna press a button and the planes are gonna descend without starting an attack. It's basically a conscious spotting for a carrier. And in both of the low altitude modes, planes obviously can be targeted by AA and fighters, and the recon mode also allows you to start an attack if you want. Will deplete a meter, so you cannot just constantly spam recon mode. CVs received another new feature, which is manually controlling your secondary battery. Basically, when you're not flying the squadron, you're gonna be able to manually control all the secondary battery as if it's your main battery. We've seen this feature being tested with the introduction of the Thrasher and the IGN submarine. The secondary battery is gonna have increased range when being manually controlled, as well as increased accuracy. And once you launch your planes, they're gonna go back to being actual secondary battery. During this time when you actually manually control your secondaries, your damage comparative is not gonna be automatic, which is also a quality of life feature for aircraft carrier players. Surface ships are also gonna get a couple extra changes. First is gonna be the manual AA, which is basically reworked priority sector. Now you're not gonna have to actually select which part of your ship is gonna be affected. You just press a button and you're gonna deal percentage damage to planes in your AA range. It's no longer gonna increase the AA. Instead, we're gonna get automatic AA, which is something that is gonna counter just being one target for CV. Basically, whenever your AA is gonna be working, you're gonna fill up a meter. Once the meter is gonna be filled, your ship's AA is gonna be increased. You're gonna get damage bonus to manual AA and reduction of its cooldown. Last, we're gonna have upgraded defensive AA fire. This is gonna get couple more functions, such as increases the ship's AA range to 7 kilometers, increasing the AA damage just like normal, and a preemptive use function, which is if the planes actually go into your extending AA range when it is extended, so you use the consumable and then the planes go into that range, they're gonna be blinded from spotting you. Using updated defensive AA fire will also boost the process of filling the bar for automatic AA by 50%. Okay, so how those changes are gonna impact our game? First, I need to say that most of those changes are very positive. Destroyer players seeing those are probably delighted, since they're gonna have much easier time playing now. CVs are gonna need to reinvent on how they actually gonna play, instead of having it actually very simple of just go and do more damage than the enemy CV does. What I want to see is more changes towards the fighters, since I think that this is something that's been neglected by Wargaming for a long time. For example, how about just making that the interceptors can attack planes at high altitudes and having a drawback of attacking the planes on lower altitudes slower, since then you would need to descend, which normal fighters will just have no problems with, but they cannot reach the high altitudes. As well as other changes to the fighter's consumable that many destroyer players will probably agree on, which remove the ability of the fighters to spot ships, but make them at all times spot the planes. That would be something interesting, don't you think? In terms of changes to surface ships AA, I'm just having minor concern about upgraded defensive AA fire blinding the squadron. I feel like it should just remove the spotting for allies, or at least show the silhouette of the ship that is shooting it with its AA, since I don't believe it's fairly logical for planes not to be able to see what's directly in front of them, blasting so many guns into them. I can totally believe that they wouldn't be able to pass the information to the allies as well. The automatic AA is a very interesting change. I'm having a little bit doubts on how the progress bar should be filled. I think it should be increased for the ship that is actually being dropped, ergo the planes are the closest to him, and the others having this a little bit slower, since, well, stacking up ships will just fill the progress bar for everyone the same, and I don't think that's gonna be very fair. I feel like the victim or the main target of the CV should have that progress increased the fastest compared to anyone else. I also like how the changes to defensive AA fire consumable is actually gonna create more variety in the gameplay, since some players will probably try out running this consumable instead of hydroacoustics. So overall, I'm very positively surprised by Wargaming, since they generally do not cook good updates. However, I'm a little bit concerned about the state of Nakhimov after those changes. Since most CVs are in desperate need to change their gameplay after this, Nakhimov is actually just gonna be feeling even better, since those changes are gonna actually remove a lot of disadvantages Nakhimov has, with leaving most of these pros untouched. First, the two modes. Normally, for any other aircraft carrier, travel mode is, well, no more accidental spotting, but I can move freely around the map. That's it. For Nakhimov, this change is gonna mean I can move around the map without the risk of randomly finding a destroyer that is gonna rip my squadron in half, since I cannot drop at below 2 kilometers. As well as Nakhimov planes being generally known for being kinda slow without the engine boost, now they're gonna be able to move in travel mode with their maximum speed. So Nakhimov is generally getting speed boost and lower risks. In terms of low altitude, well, Nakhimov is not really trying to spot the ships himself. He drops the big battleships and heavy cruisers that are already being detected by your allies. Doesn't care about the changes in spotting. Other CVs dropping only part of the squadron means that when you shoot plane down, you're directly impacting the damage. Meanwhile, guess which CV doesn't care about dropping only part of the squadron? Yes, it's Nakhimov, because he's gonna be dropping with the whole squadron anyway. So he doesn't care, as well as he's just gonna be dropping from outside of your AA range anyway, since it can prepare an attack from over 6 kilometers and drop you barely touching your AA. Last thing that's gonna be just direct buff to Nakhimov are gonna be the manual secondaries. Most of the CVs do not really have secondaries. Most of it are just dual purpose AA guns. Wargaming itself said that many CVs are just gonna be able to control the biggest AA guns as secondaries. Meanwhile, Nakhimov possesses Smolensk turrets as secondaries that currently with secondary build reach up to 11 kilometers in range. Now imagine that range being increased, their dispersion decreased, and the player controlling them. Well, good luck any destroyer that tries to engage with Nakhimov then. My guess about why those changes are like this are very simple. Wargaming wants to make sure that Nakhimov is still gonna be very powerful in that update. Since my prediction is that they're gonna print Azur Lane Nakhimov for doubloons, in the very same update they're gonna change the CVs. And as we all know, there are gonna be people to pay for big booba version of a tech tree ship. I don't want to antagonize the weep players, I'm something of a weep myself, but selling big booba Nakhimov is, in my opinion, just a cheap cash grab for gaming. And making sure that it's not gonna be inflicted or even just gonna be better after the CV rework changes, well, it speaks for itself. I don't want to see the meta being, well, can your CV snipe enemy Nakhimov in the first couple minutes? No? You lose. I don't want that. And I hope my predictions are wrong.